The exile tank in the heart of Louisiana. Picture this: a humid, sticky highway somewhere in Louisiana, the air thick with the smell of diesel and southern pollen. A massive, awkward transport trailer is parked at a truck stop. The driver has vanished. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he got distracted by business we'll never know about. And on that trailer, like a caged beast in steel shackles, it sits. A phantom from the distant Ural Mountains. A source of pride for some and fierce hatred for others. The T-90A tank. Its journey across Europe and the ocean was shrouded in secrecy. But here it was, halfway to its final resting place. Probably some secret testing ground at Aberdeen or a military base like Fort Benning. Stalled, and for a few hours or even days, becoming public property. And what did it look like? Not like a parade day beauty on Red Square. It was covered in dust, grime, and streaks of rust. It was the real deal. It was at this moment that a man approached it. He introduced himself as Captain Chaos, a veteran of the Iraq War, a former gunner on the legendary Abrams. He inspected the Soviet machine, this iron communist, from head to track. And his verdict, which later spilled out on his social media, was short, crude, and merciless. Garbage, not armor, and no maintenance to speak of. Just a few words. But behind them lies a whole chasm of misunderstanding, a difference in mentality, in approaches to war, and in the very philosophy of armored vehicles. This phrase isn't just one man's opinion. It's a key that unlocks the door to a huge world of global rivalry, propaganda, engineering genius, and soldier's truth. What's really behind these words? Bitter experience? Bias? Or did he, without even knowing it, point out the main, but completely wrong, quality of this fighting machine? Let's figure out together. Buckle up, it's a long read, but it's worth it. Captain Chaos and his Abrams. Two truths of one war. Who is this Captain Chaos? Let's not just trust a profile picture online. Let's imagine him as a real person. 20 months in Iraq. 20 months inside his Abrams. Can you imagine what that means? That's not just service. That's symbiosis. Man and machine become one. He knows every squeak of his turret, every smell of diesel and oil, every inch of his workspace. His Abrams is his home, his fortress, his office, and his weapon. It's the pinnacle of comfort by tank standards, with air conditioning, perfect sights, and the most powerful armor. And so, this man, raised in a culture where equipment must be not just functional, but almost sterile, where regular maintenance is an absolute religion, looks at the T-90A. What does he see? First, he sees rust. And for him, that's a sign. A sign of neglect, laziness, a low standard of operation. The Russians don't clean their tanks. That's a classic line, going back to the Soviet era. But let's ask a simple question. What is rust for a tank? It's metal corrosion. Yes, it reduces strength, but on the scale of tank armor, whose thickness is measured in dozens of centimeters, surface rust is a cosmetic defect, not a critical failure. It's like judging an off-road vehicle's reliability by the scratches on its body after conquering the wilderness. Now, let's look at photos of American Abrams during Operation Desert Storm or in Iraq. You'll find hundreds of shots where the mighty machines are covered in dust, mud, and streaks. They don't shine. They are at war. War isn't a parade. War is dirt, dust, sand, water, and salt. And a tank that looks brand new is a tank that isn't fighting. Second, he didn't like the appearance. Ugly. But what is beauty for a tank? For an American tanker, used to the angular, monumental forms of the Abrams, our T-90A with its lower, squat silhouette and rounded turret might seem shabby. But here we get to the heart of the philosophical difference. The American school of tank design, we build a tank fortress. Big, powerful, with impregnable frontal armor, with comfort for the crew. It must dominate and overwhelm. The Soviet/Russian school, we build a tank warrior. Small, low, hard to spot, survivable. Its task is to survive first and foremost thanks to its small size and the difficulty of hitting it. Not just the thickness of its armor. Captain Chaos looks at the T-90A through the eyes of a man from a fortress and sees a shabby shack. But he doesn't understand that this shack is about 3 times lower in height than his fortress, and hitting it on the battlefield is a much more difficult task. Conclusion for Part 1. Captain Chaos's criticism is criticism from another world. It's subjective and based on different standards and different combat experience. He judged a book by its cover, and a cover that was dirty and worn from a long, hard road at that. Garbage, not armor. Breaking down the loudest accusation. This is the most serious accusation. Armor is the crew's life. Calling armor garbage is like telling a pilot his parachute is sewn from rotten threads. But is it true? Let's look inside. The T-90A isn't just a slab of steel. It's a multi-layered composite cake. The base is steel armor, but its main feature is the built-in explosive reactive armor, Contact 5. What is that? These aren't just the iron boxes we see on the outside. It's an active system. When it's hit by a heat round, a main tank killer, these blocks explode, and their blast creates a counterjet that disrupts and disperses the deadly stream of molten metal from the enemy's shell. For American tankers in their Abrams of the early 90s and 2000s, explosive reactive armor was something exotic and possibly even dangerous. After all, it's explosives around you. Their armor is a passive monolith of depleted uranium and ceramics. It's thicker, heavier, but works differently. And what about the famous Abrams? Yes, its armor is legendary. But every legend has its price. Literally, the cost of one M1 Abrams back in the 2000s ranged from $6 to $9 million. The cost of a T-90A was many times lower, around $2 to $3 million. The question is, how many times better was the Abrams in real combat? 2 times? 3 times? No, the difference wasn't that catastrophic. Moreover, the Abrams has its own Achilles heel, its size and weight. Nearly 70 tons. A tank like that can't cross most bridges in Europe without special preparation. It requires gigantic transport vehicles for deployment. It guzzles fuel like crazy. The T-90A weighed about 50 tons. It's more mobile, more stealthy. It can go places where an Abrams would get stuck. So what is garbage? Garbage is something useless. But the history of the T-90's combat use and its predecessors in Syria and the Middle East proves the opposite. These machines withstood hits from anti-tank missiles, explosions from IEDs, and returned to service. Their armor worked. It wasn't garbage. It was different. Maybe Captain Chaos just never saw what his beloved Abrams looks like after being hit by an RPG-29 with a tandem warhead, which was specifically designed to defeat Western armor. The picture, I assure you, wouldn't be pretty from either side. No maintenance, a culture of operation, or a philosophy of survival. Here we come to perhaps the deepest and most cultural difference. The American military is a military with a practically unlimited budget. They have everything, from special cleaning supplies for every bolt to a huge fleet of repair shops and contractors who maintain the equipment. Their philosophy: the machine must be perfect. If something breaks, we replace the whole unit. The Soviet and later Russian army always had to make do. The budget was more modest, the conditions harsher. The philosophy is different. The machine must work even in the harshest conditions and be reparable by the crew or field workshops using available means. This gave rise to a different design approach. Russian tanks are simpler to repair. Many components can be fixed in the field with a hammer, a chisel, and a welder. For the Abrams, you often need complex diagnostic equipment and ready-made spare parts. What does "they don't clean their tanks" mean? It's a myth that has a basis in reality, but it's distorted. Yes, in the Russian army, there might not have been the same fanaticism about polishing to a shine. But that doesn't mean the tanks weren't maintained. They were maintained differently. The emphasis was on functionality. Check the lubrication, track tension, engine operation. Shine and polish were for parades. And most importantly, survivability. A low silhouette is itself an element of protection. Simplicity of design means the possibility of quick repair. Captain Chaos saw rust and drew a conclusion about maintenance. But I see a tank that traveled halfway around the world, which might have sat out in the open for months, and which still managed to get to a truck stop on a trailer, but still, Isn't that a sign of a certain reliability? And Abrams, after such a journey without its gold-plated service, I'm sure, wouldn't look any better. The economics of steel. Why a tank is not just a weapon, but money. Let's be frank. Any war is about economics. Any tank is not just steel and a gun. It's also huge amounts of money. And here, the T-90A and its kin were and remain the kings of the global market. Economic background, based on open data. Production cost. As I already mentioned, one T-90A cost the budget around $2 to $3 million. An Abrams M1A2 from $6 to $9 million. The newest T-90M ProRiv costs about $4 million, while the latest Abrams modifications have soared past $10 million apiece. Export. The T-72, T-90, and their modifications are the best-selling tanks in the world. Dozens of countries have bought them, from India and Vietnam to Algeria and Syria. Why? Because it's the perfect value-for-money proposition. For the army of a developing country that can't afford to maintain a fleet of Abrams or German Leopards, a Russian tank is a workhorse. It's cheap to buy, cheap to maintain, and undemanding in operation. Logistics. Maintaining one Abrams is a giant expense for fuel. Its gas turbine engine is a fuel-guzzling beast, transportation, and repair. The T-90, with its diesel engine, is much more economical. That means for the same money, you can maintain more tanks, more crews, and have a greater presence on the battlefield. Analysis. The world of weapons is a market. And in this market, Russia has firmly occupied its own, very profitable niche supplying reliable, effective, and, critically, affordable weapons. Captain Chaos's criticism is criticism from the position of the premium segment. It's like an owner of a Ferrari criticizing a Toyota Land Cruiser for its imperfect leather interior and noisy engine. But he doesn't understand that the Land Cruiser will go where the Ferrari gets stuck and it will run on the lowest quality gas, all while carrying 5 times the cargo. It's the same here. The T-90 is a working tool of war, not a showpiece. Part 5. The T-90M is just an upgrade of the T-72. Stupidity or compliment. This thesis, which Western experts and commentators love to repeat, always amuses me. Oh, it's just an old T-72. Friends, what do you think evolution is? The Abrams M1A2 SCPV-3. What is it? Is it not an upgrade of the old M1 from 1980? Of course it is. A radical, deep one, but the base is the same. The German Leopard 2 A7. What is it? Is it not a direct descendant of the Leopard 2 from the 70s? Absolutely. So what's the accusation? The fact that Russian engineers managed to take a successful, simple, and cheap T-72 platform, created back in the 70s, and through deep modernizations create machines that even today, 50 years later, compete with the newest Western models. That's not a flaw. That's genius. It says that the initial concept was so progressive and had such colossal potential for development that it has lasted for half a century. Compare the exterior of the T-72 model from 1973 and the T-90M ProRiv. Yes, the general features are recognizable, but inside, it's a completely different machine. A new fire control system, new sights, thermal imagers, completely different explosive reactive armor, relict instead of contact 5, a new engine, an auto-loader, communications, a crew protection system. Calling this just an upgrade is like calling a modern smartphone with its multi-core processor and artificial intelligence just an upgrade of a brick Nokia mobile from the 90s because it also has a screen and buttons. This isn't criticism. It's a failure to understand the nature of evolution. Epilogue. So, who's right? So, who is right in our story? Captain Chaos with his garbage, or me with my thoughts on a different approach? Both are right, but each in their own way. Captain Chaos is right within the framework of his worldview, his experience, and his military culture. His truth is the truth of a soldier from a gold standard army, for whom equipment is almost a shrine requiring daily worship in the form of maintenance. But there is another truth, the truth of the T-90A tank. It's the truth of another continent, another philosophy, another budget. It's the truth of a machine that was created not to win at inspections, but to win in a real war on real, dirty, and harsh earth. Its rust is not a sign of neglect, but scars testifying to a long and difficult journey. Its ugliness is a deception hiding lethal efficiency. Its simplicity is the key to survivability and repairability under conditions where there is no certified dealer nearby. The T-90A, stuck at a truck stop in Louisiana, was like an emissary from another dimension. It brought with it not just steel and armor. It brought a whole philosophy. A philosophy that Captain Chaos couldn't or didn't want to read. He only saw the cover. And what do you see? Do you see garbage? Or do you see an iron soldier, silently and proudly guarding its secrets? Well, that's the story. It's much deeper than it seems at first glance. It's a story about bias, different cultures, and why you can't judge a book by its cover. If this analysis hooked you, made you think, if you want to see more deep and honest material like this on this channel, subscribe, smash that like button, and most importantly, write in the comments. Your opinion is priceless to me. Tell me, whose side are you on in this argument? Do you believe Captain Chaos? Or do you think he was wrong? Let's discuss. I'm waiting for your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions for future topics. Together, we can get to the bottom of any, even the most complex questions